Okay, I'm going to ramble a little bit here, but I'm going to try to put together history, folklore, science, and aquarium and fish keeping from under the world and Neptune's realm here. So let's see if I can do this correctly and in a way that we can all understand it, keep up with it, and everything. A lot of people know that I do a lot of aquarium and fish keeping in the past and stuff, and indeed was somewhat of an expert at it also. And learning Latin, it helped out a whole lot. Learning external languages helped out somewhat, so but I can't retain all of that and then all of the other information. Indeed, I'm not a guy that plays the guitar and sings at the same time, if you will. So this fish that you're looking at right here with this big whip top fin, it's known as a Yasha Hase shrimp goby. And it's a partner goby, they call it too. And if you'll look at some of these pictures here, you can see this goby is with a little shrimp that's down beside him, and he's kind of barred up and striped. This one has a dark form, and if you'll look, there's slight variations on a theme where you see the very thin lines and not so dramatic on this one, but very dramatic here with the shrimp goby, here, here, and so on. He's got this whip fin that's on him. So let me do the folklore situation of history and attach it to a fish and how a fish got his name supposedly, and then we'll go off that and talk about other fish and things that go along with it, and maybe get a blend out of it all, if we will. Yasha Hase was said to be the bodyguard of Muhaji. He was the first emperor of Japan. One reference that one might have to that is watching the Indiana Jones movies. If you watch the Temple of Doom in the very opening scenes, whenever who ends up being Steven Spielberg's wife is singing her song, Anything Goes, and in ensues Indiana Jones, and he ends up trading with a Oriental group of people the ashes of Muhaji, first emperor of Japan. He sets it on the roundabout dais there, the little lazy Susan, and it has ashes of Muhaji, the first emperor of Japan. It's like one of the things that he had gotten, so you could tell that he had gone through something like he did in the other movie where he got the golden head and the ball went after him and all of those type of things. Just hinted to that he'd already been through something like this and gone on, and he was trading for this giant diamond. If you remember, the ice gets knocked onto the floor, everything goes to chaos and stuff. His friend gets shot, and Short Round gets him out of there once they jump out the window, if you remember. And then Kalimar and all the stories of Kali. And we touched on the bats here recently about other things, and let's get off of that and back onto it. But then that Oriental flair that it had with it and where the story comes from. So the story that I hear, and it's generally told a little bit in the fish world here, and I don't think it really goes along with the story of Katanas as well as the one that people take and utilize now. I would interject a video right now, but I know I'll get flagged, of how a katana gets its bend. Whenever it's heated and plied over and over and over and over again, and then you have it to where it's thicker on its top ridge and thinner on its cutting edge, and you heat it real hot and then put it into cold steeped water, it actually will crack and get this little bend going on in it and kind of torques up. It doesn't really crack. It makes a noise, though. You can hear it. It makes this noise and gets a bend into it that looks much like the fin that's on here. And the story is that they were, and it varies slightly, but the story is that they were with a priest and with Muhaji going on an homage to some place, from one place to another in Japan in elder days. And in doing so, they got waylaid on the road by a bunch of brigands. These would be just bandits, if you will, and so on. And you can play out things like this in D&D, by the way. But anyhow, so they waylaid them on the road. Now, there was a few people with them that were, I guess, protectors in some way, but had his personal bodyguard there. And he had a sword made by a special swordman and stuff and it was given to him to be the protector of Muhaji. So whenever these brigands came onto him, a fight ensued, and supposedly Muhaji sat either in his carrying chariot dais that they had and didn't move a bit, or stood there with his arms clasped while all this all went on. And he got into a fight with between 8 and about 15 people. And I've even heard over 20, but it just starts to get crazy, and the fish was that big. But anyhow, so everyone gets killed except for the priest, Muhaji, and Yasha Hase. And Yasha Hase had saved him, and during the fight he had fought so valiantly, swinging so hard, and they had armor on that really was like cloth woven, multi-layered over leather, over another set with leather on it, and it's hard to bear through that. You have to hit weak points. And in the process of doing this, his sword became bent back, and in that process he started cutting off the arms and heads of these people in the fights, and just took them down rather rapidly after that point. And that this supposedly re-inspired the sword maker to start making them in that way, so that they would cut through and a lot more efficiently. So there's just a story that goes along with this Muhaji, Yasha Hase, first emperor of Japan type thing. And then the symbiotic Goby probably has something to do with that concept too. You look at some of these and they have this huge fins onto them, like you see in this far one over here as I pull it over. Other ones have slightly smaller fins, and they'll say a female will have a slightly smaller fin, but if you let them pair up, a lot of times they'll pair up and it'll seem to be the same types of fin. People say, oh, they're gay gobies, and no, it's not. The females in both of these will have quite the longer fins. There's no sexual dimorphism in them, meaning a drastic difference between a male and female that can be detected, as in a long fin, a short fin, or one's this color, one's that color, like cardinals, where a female's gray and a male's bright colored. In a lot of the bird world, men get to be pretty, and so you have this type of thing going on a lot. You look down on them and you can see the candy stripes of these. And over in the Orient, certain patterns of these will actually sell for a lot more, and because they're specialized. And of course, a goby that looks like this versus the one that we were looking at that's much hotter, that even these two don't stand up to, would be prized more. And you've got to realize where you get things from. And I was getting them out of a Bali distributor that was getting them by trading his clownfish and anemones and things that he had abundance of to people all around in the area from Jakarta and the islands in Sulawesi and all around there, pulling off a better selection, and in doing so got to get some of the more rarer fish that you could get out of these areas and in trade. And because he didn't trade and have that much really money into them, he didn't have so much of a problem doing it and getting a real good deal off of it. Let me see if I can get this to line up. I really do hate this new format that they have going on. Talk about that fish here in just a second. My gosh, this new format just sucks. Okay. So you can see the candy striping on here, and where he's pretty much a milky see-through color with white blotches on them and red blotches. And this is Alpheus randalli. It's the Randall's pistol shrimp, and a lot of people will get different types of shrimp gobies that have a symbiotic relationship with these pistol shrimp. They help them to knock out the little micro shrimps that live in the live rock. The actual porous live rock that you have will have these little copepods and micro shrimps that'll bloom out of them. If you get decent live rock, it's got them living into it, and they'll bloom out over time. Certain fish exclusively only eat them and so on, and they'll have to pop them. But also they'll do a protection. The goby can come back in and do this flick maneuver, and the shrimp, being almost blind by the way, will actually put off a pistol shrimp sound coming out the hole at anything that's attacking them. And it really is a concussive type sound to fish, and it does a protective type thing too. So it's a whole little thing that goes with it. If you look here, this gorgeous fish here is called a mandarin goby, and it's really not a true goby. It's called a dragonet. And if you look, this blur right here is actually a side fin, and it pedals real fast like a hummingbird, and it's more blue on him. And you can look at all the blue trim on this guy. This is one that's known as a blue mandarin goby. There's other ones where the back and the lines you see on the back, which are orange and green, the orange is much more dominant and the green is not, and that's going to be a red mandarin, even though it's kind of an orange color. And then the green mandarin is the one that you regularly get, and it's more of a common green, but still has the orange speckles, golden speckles around the jaw, and some blue onto it, and they're all gorgeous. You can see the little spike fin he's got right there if you can, and I know this is tiny, people, but and that spike fin there shows a male. A female will just be rounded off. Other forms of this are of these gobies that have partner shrimps, are these barber pole gobies that are right here, or yellow nose black ray shrimp goby as they're called, and you can see them here peekabooing up out of their holes, I guess. And these mandarin gobies, to show you the variation, here is the red mandarin goby, and if you look at him versus the others and how he has much more red on him, and it's just a variation on where they come from. They're slightly different from Fiji, from here, from there. There's also one that has target spots on it, known as a target mandarin. They're a little different, and they kind of exclusively eat the bugs out of your live rock, so you have to have a live rock tank and a coral reef set up, and they live off the coral reef. And a lot of these fish will of course live off a coral reef, so you put that environment together and it makes it work a whole lot better altogether. And the bugs that are in the live rock will naturally fall into these corals, get stung and eaten, and it'll help you to feed them over and above the slight supplemental feeding that you'll give to them. Here's a real good example, I guess, of a red mandarin goby, and so you can probably see the difference here if it pops it up, and you can see how red that guy is, and the green lines are just very minimalized, but also the green on these forms here, real metallic, versus the other ones being just more of a painted on, and some of them even being olive drab color. In fact, the target mandarin's quite olive drab color. Here's a cinctus goby here, and it's a yellow watchman goby. There's a variation that comes out of near Bali too, that instead of having little pearlish dots, has little blue dots. And if you look extremely closely, they're darker on one side than the other, almost giving little eyeball effects onto it. It's real neat to look at. So anyhow, and here's damselfish. A lot of people will start up their aquarium, but even though they got the cute little name damsel, they are mean as hell, and generally people will try to get them out of there after cycling their aquarium. I helped to pioneer a method where we don't do that, and we also don't kill them going through the harsh cycle by literally just putting the live rock in there and letting it break in naturally, and then slow going with easy fish, knowing what fish you may put together eventually. And as they get, the tank gets more and more broke in, you put in other fish. You don't throw them all in at one time. If you do, you can just crash the whole thing and lose it all, and it's kind of terrible. There's variations on the theme of a lot of these saltwater fish, and the gobies is one of the largest families that there is, along with wrasses and so on. This is another type of banded goby here that they have. Here's a tamini, or a firefish, or a flame fin tang, and there's a lot of different types of tangs. This is a bristle-toothed tang, and he has a scratchy little rough mouth, kind of like a cow's mouth is on the inside, if you will, on a cow's tongue. And here's a variation of that that's really prized. It comes out of Hawaii, called a chevron tang. Clown triggers come out of the Red Sea, and that guy that's current in my deal is going to the, and I asked him, what a clown trigger is and so on. This is a baby, couldn't be more than an inch long. They look a lot different and get a total mask around their eyes whenever they get older and stuff. Again, here's one of those barber pole style of gobies, and he comes off of that barber pole type of thing. So anyhow, I thought I would just show some of these variations on a theme here, and it kind of links things together. Latin and things like that linked it together to me. There was always some kind of links, and what I always thought was beautiful about it was that nobody even knew this stuff really existed. Even when people were flying back and forth across the Mayflower and everything, they had no idea there was these coral reefs below them the entire time. Well, not out in the deep ocean, but around anywhere they went, and they would run into these coral reefs and it would take out their boats. And little did they know how cool the little things that were on here. I mean, they only had like fear of sharks and things like that. Some of these gobies are free swimming. This is known as a firefish goby. There's a couple other forms of it. There's a purple firefish goby, and hellfricks get quite expensive and only come out of certain areas, Marshall Islands and Hawaii. And but these will hang out in schools, and they free swim up, and they do this flick, 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 flick with their top fin. That's just real cool looking. One of my favorite fish in the hobby, other than the Yasha Hase goby that we look at, is Randall's gold stripe prawn goby, and it's named after the same person. Whoa, wow! It's named after the same person that the I hate this new format. Same person that it is, and it's got these cool gold bands with darker bands right on the next of it. It's got a huge sail fin that sticks up with a pearly and a fake eye, and you'll sit and stick it up like a signal and put it down. This is that watchman. He's watching for the shrimp, and they're all working symbiotic together. I used to have one that would actually talk to me. I was kind of famous for it for a little while. I'd put up my hand and open my hand, and he would put up his fin. I'd put my hand down, and he'd put his fin down. I'd put it up, he'd go up. I'd put it down, and go down. Now, if I came to play with the aquarium he was in or mess with it in any way, and I didn't give him attention, he'd come up to the front glass, turn sideways, and sling sand up against the glass. I'm like, hey, and then he'd go and he'd throw his fin up, and I was like, oh no, it's your turn. You're doing it first. So then I put my hand up, and he put his down. I put it down, but he always wanted me to initiate it shortly after that. But it was pretty cool, you know, to have this little symbiosis going along with him. One of my friends right now has one that's got to be over 10, 11 years old, and doing fantastic. So a lot of cool things, though. A lot of these corals that you see that are over in here are actually live coral symbiotic plants. Inside their body and their skin grows zooxanthellae. It's a type of algae in a myriad of different colors, and that works off the spectrum of light they're getting. Once you get down in the ocean, that's why you see a lot of bluish light in here. You know, when you get down the ocean, it turns blue. Well, all the red, orange, yellow, and really dies out, and the spectrum kind of gets veered. And so when you want to recreate the lighting to grow these corals, you have to kind of peg that spectrum. And again, I was one of the pioneers that helped out in doing that. And with LEDs, trying to recreate exactly certain wavelengths and only certain amount of them. So when you crank them up in different percentages, you could grade from being 10 foot below the ocean to 30, 40, 50 foot below the ocean and get the variation on a theme. But also in using timers, you could make it to where during the morning it was real blue, and as the sun got brighter and brighter, you'd have it go bright throughout the day and then dim back off. I kind of pioneered doing that with just timers and lighting systems at first, using timers with the blues and timers with the whites. But after we got the LEDs, you could even change the spectrum and have it go rippling through the day, a storm come over, and some of these even eventually got set up where it would make the white lights into them flicker every once in a while whenever it would dim down in the storm and make it look like light. Of course, once you get about 50 foot in the ocean, 40 foot in the ocean, even if it lightnings, unless it's right on top of you, you won't even see the flash necessarily of it. But it's a cool little gimmick, and it kind of puts it through a storm mode. A lot of people, whenever they do a water change, kind of disturbs it like a storm came through, and they'll hit the storm button and things like that. Beautiful fairy and filamented wrasses like this, what they call flasher wrasses. Some of them have big fins too that they stick out and flash and show to everybody. Some of these coral close-ups that are here and things like that. Just some gorgeous fish and just neat things that are all throughout the ocean. Here's a version of Nemo. We talked about that in one of the other videos, and there's a true percula. Well, the Nemo that you're used to seeing has thin little black lines around his white between the orange. The true percula, it really kind of bleeds out and blends, and there are times when the black bleeds out all the way into where the tail is. This is the natural ones that come from there, and if you go down to Irian Jaya and into Australia, you'll see ones that are all black with white stripes and only orange around the face and the chin area, and that's it. And then they have found a variation of that that's Darwin's, they call it, and they're really all black. Whenever they're young, you'll still see a slight orange in the chin, though. But people want to get them all black. Here's another one of my favorite shrimp gobies here. This one here is a flame tail goby, or what they called birthday candle goby. If you stuck him on his head in the sand, this looks like a flame, and therefore it looks like a little candle. And man, I wish I could zoom in on all these pictures, but this new format sucks. But there's another version of it too that had distinctive candy stripes on it and a brighter flame tail, and we used to get those in also. Really a prized fish, somewhat expensive to somebody and everything. Wrasses like this, it's amazing, but as they grow up, they'll totally change their color. This is a juvenile form of a red chorus wrasse, and whenever it adults, it'll turn into a speckled, well, if it's an African version, it'll turn into a speckled gray with a red tail and have a blue line over his eye. If it's the Bali variation, it'll have yellow and blue, and then a yellow tail with light blue metallic dots all in it. Totally changed. A lot of angels and things will have a juvenile and adult form. There's one of those Darwin's clowns. So you can see Nemo as being almost solid black that's here. Again, one of those Yasha Hase gobies. Banded coral shrimps, little shrimps that hang out there, shrimps that act as cleaners for the other fish. It's real neat. Here's a little cardinal that only comes off of the Marshall Islands, and picture doesn't do it justice. It's got a little flame fin into it and a little bit of rosy color, but the neat thing is you pretty much can see through it. It's not that neat, but you want to put them in a school, and not every fish can be a glowing gemstone, and they're neat and different and something special you don't usually get in the hobby. But this is something that you'll see hundreds of up under certain cliff faces and things hanging around and zigzagging back and forth along that line. There's hawk fishes like this that perch on the edge of precipices and watch for little shrimps and fish to come along, and then hawk and go down. Here's another version with his little pistol shrimp that's here, Alpheus pistol shrimp, that has that bigger arm on them, and they make this snap. That's why they're called a pistol shrimp. They can make a report that's really quite loud. If you put your ear up to the aquarium and let them do it, it's a snap that puts you back, almost like a firecracker, and mimics like a mantis shrimp's call and things like that. This is Wheeler's Goby version right here, where it's just speckled out. Oh, again, Darwin's clowns that are over here. There's Yasha Hase in a bag, you know, and quite often whenever I was selling them, I would have to take pictures of each one and go, yeah, he's gorgeous, looks just like the picture, and so on. Here's an oddity that they've done to Nemo now, where they've inbred them and tried to get a lot of color and bands and how they can get different forms off of them and mutations and tried to breed them together. And it's called a snowflake clown, and then there's variations on that that get real expensive too, but now that it's become somewhat common, you don't see it so much. But anyhow, yeah, another version of firefish goby that's over here. Here's little flame-tailed gobies we were talking about before. Stingray over at their side. Some of these corals like this used to go for auction. This is a Sinorina over donut coral, and that's actually Scolemia, which now has been renamed again. Yeah, they keep changing these Latin names and so on, but some of these things would go on for auctions and get quite expensive. Here's another neat thing. This is a Koran angel, and he's just turning from juvenile to adult. His tail has a Sanskrit-looking writing onto it, and so they've deemed that a Koran angel. There's the purple firefish goby that we were talking about before. You can see him when he comes in. He's purple, doesn't look like the regular one we were looking at. Anyhow, guys, oh, here's a card in one of those games where you can play Yasha Hase, the skeletal mashiki. I don't know what that goes to. Here's a decorated goby. That picture doesn't do him justice. The orange spots are on the external of his skin. The white dots are internal, and the rest of him is clearish. And so it just looks like a piece of glass floating around. Again, there's a lot of different kinds of clownfish. Look at this guy right here. He's a maroon clown. Right there I'm pointing at. You can see he's all maroon. There's variations of that that are extremely rare also. So, here's a variation of Nemo with the blurbs on his forehead, if you can catch that. So, a lot of variations on a theme. Here's a Royal Grandma, comes out of the Caribbean. Here's a French Angel, comes out of the Caribbean. It looks totally different whenever he gets mature too, has a sequined appearance when it gets older. Here's another type of clown that's in a totally different genus, really, a different variations on a theme, if you will, of types of clownfish. It's called a Clarky clown, and most variations that you see here are Sabay clowns. Sabay is really one that has a different bottom fin on it. But, so a lot of neat. Oh, there's that lightning maroon I was telling you about. I don't know if you can catch a good picture of that, but you see the scribble on it. Doesn't look like the regular Nemo markings. It's turned into a lightning effect. The first few of these were thousands of dollars, and there's your Darwin's version right there. Yeah, pretty neat. Oop, there's Kali, and how does that all hook up with it all? So yeah, Yasha Hase gobies. You'll find also variations of those changing French and Arcuatus angels and so on that'll have weird markings, and those will sell for more. This is a frondosa. Here, this comes out of Lake Tanganyika, freshwater in Africa, deep. They hook up together, Malawi and Tanganyika, They have different bands onto them. This is looks like the Mbutu kind. It doesn't have as bright a color. Some of these other ones will really be almost a deep blue and white bands over them. They get a quite bulbous forehead. The males do especially. It's called a knuckle hump when they go off into breeding and things. It's one of the larger fish that they have in there, and even edible somewhat. Ooh, there's a yellow goatfish. He's got those little goat fins on him. There's a better picture of that decorated goby. To my eyes, you can kind of see now the internal and external dots that are on him, and that high ray that's on him. Different types of cleaner shrimps. This is the blood cleaner shrimp that you find in Nemo. Ooh, la mer. And la mer means the ocean, like mer, like mermaid. Like I keep telling you, Mary and mer, that all goes together with the water, as in God's face hovered above the waters. Christmas wrasse. And you think, oh, it's red and green, it's named after Christmas. And no, it was actually found originally on Christmas Island. Yep. And the same guy that named Christmas Island Christmas, that was there on Christmas, named Easter Island. Guess where he was on Easter? So, yeah, variations on a theme. Little bitty trim of gobies. This guy couldn't be more than a centimeter long. There's a lot of variations on a theme. Anyhow, guys, I just thought I'd ramble on to that and show you things about Yasha Hase and so on. Oh, that Koran angel. There's another variation here called an imperator. Has full swirls. The Koran's called semicirculatus. This one is imperator. And whenever he gets older, he turns into yellow and blue lines. Totally looks different again. Here we see Nemo playing in his anemone. Yeah, so kind of neat. So I guess there's some of the little, a glimpse at my knowledge of some of the fish and things, and maybe something about gobies, a little bit about history, a little bit about Katanas and Yasha Hase and the first emperor of Japan. Like, share, and subscribe, guys. Enjoy. Peace.